time speakers. And so Pastor Peter came this year. Shout out to Pastor Peter Reeves, due to Pastor Nate's recommendation. So Pastor Nate is here for us, and we really appreciate that and all that you do for us in all of Ohio. Um, kind of getting into some questions. We wanted to take some time today while we have you. You have a pulse on what is happening in the youth ministry world, and so you're not just in one church. So you're connecting with other youth pastors, other students all over the state of Ohio. And so today we wanted to talk about some questions that myself and Pastor Matt have had, questions that I've heard. But maybe you even have some questions. And if we have the time today, we would love to maybe get a chance to answer some of those. So if you want to leave those in the comments wherever you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we're going to try and keep up with those and, want to honor your time, Pastor Nate, in this. But kind of a question to get us started, just in light of everything that's been going on over the past few weeks here, is, there's so much that's going on and so much that has changed in life. Like it seems like literally every day, the last couple of weeks, there's been something new, whether it's a restriction that's come back, whether that's been a change, school was postponed. And even, in the last couple of days, we've heard that the restrictions have been extended through the end of this upcoming month. So there's so much change that's going on for all of Americans, but especially youth. In a question that I kind of had it and has been thinking about, is as we've talked to youth, it's been hard to find rhythms and routines. Like you have what school is, and you wake up, you get ready, you go to school, you have your classes. Like you have that routine that comes about every day. What in this time where all of that's been flipped upside down, what do you think is the most important thing a student can do for themselves mentally and spiritually? Because I've had some conversations and heard some questions that say it's like, man, we can't have youth, like we don't get to come together for youth group. I don't have my friends at school right now. Like obviously we have texting and all that, but it's not the same. And so in that mindset, like what is most important for students to do physically, mentally, and spiritually in this season?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, first of all, my heart, like, what else is going on, like for seniors, right? That's a hard thing to navigate when you're thinking, right, whether it's prom or graduation parties and you're walking at your graduation. I don't know what that looks like for all different schools. And, that's hard. And I think one of the first things is sometimes we want to be optimistic. We just don't give our chance and opportunity to say like, yeah, this is kind of hard or this kind of stinks.
Yeah.
That's okay, right? But you just can't stay there. You don't want to look back at this time just feel like it was just a month of grumbling the whole time, even though it's difficult. But to answer your question specifically on the mentally side, I think one of the things that really can help is it's very easy to fall into like a rut of you wake up, right? The world is literally shut down right now. There's not a place to go. Depending what the weather is looking like, maybe you go outside.
Right.
But I think waking up and getting ready for the day is probably one of the like first things I would say in getting your day going mentally. Sometimes it's if you're just in your pajamas all day and you have this mindset like, well, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not doing anything, that kind of plays into your psyche a little bit. But when you're waking up saying, I'm combing my hair, even though I'm going to be in this house and just seeing my family, I think it's good. I think it's good to do that. And I think it's good to have real conversations with people. As much as we're on social media right now, it's kind of easy just to kind of scroll through a feed or watch a video that someone did and it's encouraging. But I think, man, the social, like true conversations about something is really, really important. So sometimes you have to go old school and pick up, your phone and call someone, right? Call someone and say, how's your day going? Right. And I know sometimes that feels like such a mundane question of, I've been at home, literally. But I think having real conversations with people, I think is just mega, mega important. Spiritually, I think this is a great time to ask yourself, how are you leading yourself? I think in youth ministry, we can get used to, and I'll make it personal to myself, right? I don't want to just share things to like, well, for students or for youth pastors. No, for all of us. There's things that we could do in church settings that seem very normal, but when we go home, they seem abnormal. Where how are we leading ourselves? Are we really waking up and reading the word because we want to feed ourselves and we don't have to lead our Bible study at our school, or we don't have to share something at youth ministry? It's like, no, I'm reading it because like I need it. Like I need the word. There's no sermon prepared. There's no service. It's just because I need God's word. Think about John 15, right? Apart from the Father, I can do nothing. Like I have to abide in Him, and so we have to get that place of thinking. Okay, how am I leading myself? Because I try to live by this place, by this philosophy, I guess, of I don't want to become a caricature of who God has called me to be in church. And what I mean by that is who I am in the pulpit or who I am in church. I want people to feel like, oh yeah, that's the same guy when I'm hanging out after service, or that's the same guy that I see on social media. I don't, if I'm excited about sports and I get amped up, I want that to look the same way when I get excited about God, but even more so. I don't, that's who I strive to be. And so spiritually, right, I'm not traveling and speaking in churches or not doing some of the, different conferences and things like that. But you know what? When I'm at home, I should be leading my family in the same way. Like if I can sing worship songs in church and pray for people in church, I should be able to pray for my family and not feel like, well, it's just my family and just at home, not at a conference, not at a church service. But I should wake up and sing songs. And it's like, right, in my family, I'm the lead pastor on some levels, and to lean into that. So for youth, for students, I encourage you. Maybe you're on the worship team, you're not leading worship. Why don't you just have a worship time in your room? Have a time of prayer with your family. And I know that sometimes it can seem like odd or like why? If God has called you to worship, whether you're in church, whether you're at home, worship, sing a song. Why not?
Yeah. I think that's so good, especially when you started out there, the mental side of things, like just get dressed. Like, yeah, I spent a few days, over the last couple of weeks, like there's been a few days where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna just stay in whatever I slept in, or I'm like going on day 3. I was like, yeah, I should probably change, right? Like I should probably not wear this same sweatshirt again today.
Right. You're like the snap check. You're like,
yeah, you're like, it's time to throw that in the laundry. But there's really some truth to that, because those days, like I had to come to grips. I was like, all right, I have not been as productive as I probably should have been. So there's something that needs to change, and I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, I love when you're talking about bringing who you are at church into alignment with who you are at home. And I think that's something we kind of continue to teach kids when we're at church, right? It's like, hey, who you are at church should be the same person you are at school and in your life. But I think that's really good. I have a kind of a question with that. I did in one of our group discussions, I kind of asked some students anonymously, where are you at spiritually? And a couple of them rated themselves as falling back into bad habits or into like spiritual struggles that they had in the past that they had overcome, but then just in the midst of this quarantine came back to that. I think you kind of spoke to that, but can you kind of keep speaking to that idea of how do you keep yourself from falling into old sinful habits or old ways when you're kind of at home with all this free time on your hands, as a student? What can they do to do that?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's always hard sometimes. Obviously there's lots of different home situations for students, and for some, right, what happens on a Wednesday night is truly a huge blessing. It's hope, it's life, it's love, it's all those things. And so those can be hard when you go home or you're in that place, right? I think one of the biggest things is be with someone who can keep you accountable.
Yeah, it's good.
I find like that to be, sometimes we want to will ourselves, or and shame is the number one tactic of the enemy, right? If people really knew what you were dealing with, right, it's like they would look at you differently. Or just a couple weeks ago, you were leading, worship at youth, or you were sharing, and now you're dealing with this.
Come on.
It's like, and that's right. The Bible says, confess your sins to one another that you may be healed, right? There's something about just being honest with someone. You don't have to be honest with everyone, right? You don't have to put a post and say, hey, everyone, I just want to tell you what I've been struggling with categorically, right? But you need to have people that you say, yeah, this has been a struggle for me. And I just need you just to check in on me. You know what I mean? And as a friend also, you have to have the integrity to say, hey, I'm going to check up on you
Mm.
and circle back. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes in Christian culture, like, I'll be praying for you, right? But there's something when you circle back in a week or a couple of days and say, hey, like, I was praying for you, but like how you doing? And encourage someone in that. So I think for someone who's falling into those sinful habits or just those, cycles, find someone to keep you accountable. And I think on top of that, find some scriptures. I know it sounds, right, super, spiritual to say, but find some scriptures that bring life to you, that you commit to memory. I think sometimes we just want to like be in this place of resisting, when God is in this place of like restoring things in our heart and in our mind, because we're leaning on things when we should be leaning on other things when we should be leaning on Him. So that's what I would suggest.
That's good. And I think that's so true. And I love the way you said that, because shame is the biggest tactic. Like when you can start feeling shameful or start feeling guilty about those things, then you go down this downward spiral that leads you farther from God instead of drawing close to Him as His desire is. And so, in how easy is that when you're in a place where you're stuck in the house all day, or when you're, in this mindset or in the same clothes you've been in for 3 days, like there's some of those changes that you have to really take those steps to do, and the precautions you got to set in place.
Right.
That's so good. Kind of shifting gears a little bit here, but talking in light of this, as one of the youth pastors in our group, and as I'm sure a lot of people in the church are thinking, all of this has forced youth groups to think a little more creatively about how do they reach students, and so, being able to have these Zoom calls and being able to go Instagram live and being able to play video games online with one another, it's been really cool as a part of the ministry. As much as we want to be together. But in light of everything that's going on with this pandemic and what it's kind of forced churches to do in retreating from meeting together, how do you think that's going to shift the way youth ministry is moving forward? And what role do students play in that? And I could leave that up. Like, do you think it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing moving forward, or kind of, just what's your take on that?
Yeah. I think with anything, I think it's all about how we steward it. I think sometimes we want to get into this place of, what does this look like? And, I know you're not trying to get like, is it good or is it bad? Land on one side of the fence here.
Yeah.
But I think with anything that God entrusts to us, or God seasons that God takes us in, it's all about how we're stewarding and saying, God, what are you looking to accomplish in this moment? One of the things in my prayer time, probably about a couple months ago, right? When you have a zealous heart to serve the Lord, like the vision you have is like this big. It's like, I'm going to shake the nations. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be a part of this in my church and all these kind of things. But sometimes there's a reality where God's saying, I'm going to do something great in the city. I'm going to do something great in this church. I'm going to do something great, on whatever that looks like. But maybe God will say, I just need you to do this much and be faithful here. I am going to do this, but I just need you to be faithful here. Mm-hmm. And we always have to say, like, God, in this moment, help me to steward what's in front of me and be faithful in that. And so with this moment of everyone being online and, what does youth ministry look like? For me, I think, the coming together is always going to be a part. I think it's just a huge thing. That coming together. And I've been in youth ministry for 15 years. And so I'm going to date myself, but I was in youth ministry when there was no social media, when it wasn't a thing, when it was like Zanga and like MySpace, right? It's like, what? Like, right? You guys are shaking your head. You're with me, Yeah. And now it's like, oh yeah, it's always been around. And to even date myself even more, it's like, TikTok, like I don't do like TikTok, you know what I mean? Like I'm not on that level of expertise. Yes. But it's like, you see something like Vine, like, I mean, right? I mean, imagine being like, whoever the founder of Vine was, he's probably somewhere like, it's literally the same thing. And Vine doesn't exist. And so, it's like there's things that pop up in the digital age that they may seem like they have staying power, but they might, transition out, and that's okay. But I think one thing that's never going to change is the gathering of people. And before there's social media, right, the Holy Spirit, like that was the original social media. And I don't mean it like, right, people could pray across the world and the Holy Spirit could be communicating things to people's hearts, right? Or people came to service and the pastor's preaching and they're thinking, I was just reading that passage of scripture, or God was just speaking to me. Because like that's what the Holy Spirit does. He knits hearts together. It knits vision together when we're in the place of prayer, in the place of saying, God, what are you speaking? And so I know I kind of went preaching here. See, you lock up pastors and start preaching. They don't, not my fault. Like, wrap it up, Nate.
You got to scratch that itch, man. You got to scratch it.
That's what we called you for right there, yeah.
But I would say, I think it'll change in the fact, probably one thing I see changing is for youth pastors like yourself. I mean this like with the purest of heart, Pastor Jay, Pastor Matt, you guys have great things to say. And I think there's going to be an element of youth pastors putting out content on a weekly basis, not because they're trying to gather their brand, establish their brand or gather a following, but imagine students leading in their schools and they're saying, yeah, our youth pastor is going to do a Zoom call in here and it's going to be professional. It's going to be great because they've had like 2 months of practice. And so they're ready to rock and roll. But imagine being a youth pastor in schools. And right, who doesn't have probably Zoom on their phone now, and who doesn't have Instagram, like all those kind of things. So I think that's going to change for youth pastors. I'd say get ready where it's not just going to be the Wednesday night sermon, but maybe God's going to be using you in a digital format in schools, in homes, with still having weekly services and gatherings or small groups, whatever that looks like for your church. So that's probably one thing that I would see.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And I would speak to our life group that we've had so far. Our life groups have been really effective when communicating with the kids. I know I did a high school hangout last week, and it was the richness of the conversation and just the fact that it feels more intimate than maybe just meeting at a building, because you're talking to each other. You're in your own homes, like you're getting to see a different part of each other's lives and who you are, and that's part of ministry that sometimes gets lost in just the cycles that happen of coming to the building and connecting and those kind of things that this has forced us to do. And I'm thankful for it. I feel like as we've been distanced, I feel closer to certain students who have been engaged in what we've been doing online more than I did before this whole thing happened. So for those who have been hanging out with us when we play the video games, or coming to our hangouts, or doing our life groups, or interacting with us on social media, there's been a closeness with them that's been much richer than it could have been had we not been on here. So I think we've for sure have learned a lot of things, and I think ministry, at least for CSM, I think is going to look a little different moving forward. And even just the response from our adult leaders being willing to lead life groups on a Thursday night digitally, just like this, has been a really cool thing to see. And I'll be honest, I was a skeptic when Jay and I were talking about it. I was like, I don't know, Jay, I don't know if we should throw it out to the leaders. I don't think they're going to want to do it. And if you're a leader watching, I'm sorry, I doubted you. But
I didn't doubt you. I had faith in you.
He's a better youth fan. But their response was overwhelmingly yes. And for anyone who didn't have to work or school, they all said yes. And it's been cool just to hear stories from those groups, and that actually kids showed up and clicked on a link and went out of their way to hang out for an hour with some adults, in the community that's come from that. It's been cool to just see the response, for the personal side of that response that comes from this, which is funny because it feels impersonal because you're doing it over a screen. But I don't know if that makes sense. There's some kind of depth that still comes from that conversation.
I was going to ask a question to you, Pastor Matt. I mean, Pastor Jay, I don't know if you've done some of these things as like Matt was talking about, but maybe there's a level of comfort, right? Do you feel like there's a level of like someone's in their because they do so much to their phone already, right? That there's just a level of like, I feel comfortable just kind of talking in the same way I would if I was posting a video. Is that kind of what you're seeing, that a kid's in his room sitting on his bed or their couch or whatever and just talking?
Yeah, it seems like there's a comfort level there for sure. Like, hey, I do this all the time. I can do that with, my 10 or 15 or whatever, 5 friends. Um, and I haven't heard, I've heard some stories of kids doing it on their own now. Like, hey, let's just set up our own call or do FaceTime or something, just to hang out. So it's kind of forcing people to go out of their way, to reach out to others. And yeah, it's been an interesting time. It's been cool. Yeah, so for sure. I've seen that. Yeah. It's just natural.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great, and there has been, like, obviously there's dynamics. Like, I miss being in person with everybody. Like, I miss having, like, I can't wait for the day that we can get back together and have youth group. But the fact that we have this at our fingertips as a resource, man, what other time in history have we had this ability? And so, yeah, you're absolutely right, Pastor Nate. Like, this is a resource that I think is going to change the way things function moving forward. And it's all weighing out the good and the bad in that. Stewarding is a great word. Using the most of what you're given in that time. And it's huge. It's huge. We got a question here coming from Lydia, and it says this. She asked this. She said, "How can we keep that healthy balance between schoolwork and maybe even God time in this moment?" In kind of a question to go along with that, how can we find that balance as well as find the motivation to do that? So, obviously you're out of school, but you still have school, but yet you, like you mentioned, you're responsible for yourself spiritually in a lot of ways in this season. And so here you are having to self motivate to do both of these things. Where do you find the balance in that, and how do you keep yourself moving forward?
Yeah, I think with schoolwork, right? It's I when I was coming up in school, I would not say I was, honor roll material. We'll just leave it at that. So I understand the question, and so I think with that, I think being able to, and I read a book, Atomic Habits. It's just I don't know if any of you have heard of that or read that book, but it just talks about just these small changes making these huge differences, and it's a really great book. But one of the things he talks about in the book is saying create a space where you do only specific things. Sometimes when you have one space that does everything. So for instance, like if you're at your kitchen table, like, well, that's where I eat breakfast, and then that's where I do my homework, and then that's where I do my video gaming, and then that's where like your brain just is like all over the place. But maybe when it's coming to doing your schoolwork, maybe I don't know if it's online or what it looks like for you, but try to create a space that is just for your schoolwork. And it is like, I'm gonna stay here for an hour. Maybe you give yourself an hour, 2 hours, and you come take a break and you come back to that spot where there's no distractions. There's no, well, the TV's right across there, or someone's gonna sit down at the table, start eating their cereal with me or having lunch there. But create a spot for that. And then on the other side of the spiritual growth, I think a great way to tether that, like a right, leading yourself is truly to serve others. And if we're not careful in this time, we can and I understand it, very much fall into the place of, well, what can I do? There's nothing I can do. It's be creative. I mean, your generation is creative. I think be creative with ways that you can serve people. Maybe you're just calling someone just to bring an encouraging word. Maybe you create a prayer list. You're saying, I'm going to pray for these. I'm going to commit to pray for these people every day. Who knows? Maybe you're writing a letter, sending a letter to someone. It could be lots of different things. I saw someone thought was really cool. They just got on their Instagram stories and they tagged people in it, and they were just speaking encouraging words over them. So their whole Instagram story was just encouraging words. So I think there's a lot of ideas like that. Like, how can I serve others in the midst of this unique time? So maybe those are some ways to think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on the encouraging words thing here, Pastor Nate, just had a question for those who are watching that maybe are a senior in high school, or maybe know a senior in high school, or know someone, even a senior in college, and they have someone in their life who's going through maybe some of that disappointment or uncertainty that comes with that. Do you have any encouragement that you could share with them out there, or that they could share with the senior in their life that they know, that would be beneficial? Because I know for me, it's hard to find the right words to say, to a senior, and I'm a high school pastor, so I'm trying to assume that those who maybe don't have the experience, like, what would you say would be an encouraging thing for them to pass along, or for the seniors out there? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like you'll never forget your senior year. That's for sure. But I think in all of it, and I've had conversation with lots of different people where it is difficult. I've known people that had to cancel weddings. Obviously, people who, and the one person who canceled the wedding actually did like a kind of like this wedding where people drove in their cars and they just like said hello to the bride and groom and like just gave a gift and try to make the most of the situation. And so I think for any senior, truly, my heart does go out to you because that is difficult. But I think in all of it, um, I think trying to be creative of, really asking yourself, like, what did I really want? Maybe it's like walking across the stage. Maybe do something creative of, hey, we're going to do our own graduation ceremony in my living room. I'm going to walk. I'm going to, I'm going to to make my own diploma. It's like, I don't mean to make that, like funny or belittling or like, lighthearted, but at the same time, this is a moment where you don't want to go through this time and just say, well, it was the worst time and we didn't get to do anything, but say, how can I take this to the furthest degree? Even graduation parties, maybe it's something you do later, or maybe it's something you try doing digital and trying to make it the best that it could be, as unfortunate the situation is.
Yeah. you know, I think that's huge. And yeah, it's, I can't imagine in this moment, there's so many people who are going through that loss, and, we're all losing different things, in this time. But yeah, I think that's a good word. What can you do to make the most? Like, how do you steward this moment? And let's be real, like for any student who's watching, like if you've got seniors in your life, like even if you're younger, like you can be the encouragement to them in this time. Like this is a big season of life for them to miss out on a lot of this. And so as a youth group, we talk so much about the family that we are in the way we come together. Like now's the time where as a family, in light of all the hardships and in light of all the loss, in light of all the feelings, in light of all of this stuff that's going on in our world, for us to be reaching out and really checking in on people, as much as we provide the opportunity with an online life group on Thursday and some hangouts Tuesday for, we try and provide that as a youth group, like the influence and sphere of reach that you have. And this even goes back to like when I connect with people, like I'm almost doing it all by FaceTime right now, just because it's like I need to see somebody else's face, like I love my wife and baby, but at some point it's like, man, I need to see other people too. I'm that extrovert that's going crazy in my house right now, but yeah, like who are the people that you can be reaching out to right now? And going back to the point before that about all the seniors, like the struggling with school, like any homeschooler watching right now, this is your time to shine. Like you guys have been doing this. So if you know a homeschooler, hit them up. Like how do you function and do school on a daily basis? As a former homeschooler, like that was me, you have to battle those things. You have that temptation to go play a video game or to watch TV. And so, ask them like, where do you do school? How do you do this? Like, you might be surprised to hear what they have to say. So yeah, I just thought I'd add that in. Like, come on, homeschoolers.
That's some great insight. We're actually homeschooling our boys, and so we're right there with you. My wife was like, "Nothing changing here. We're rolling with this homeschool thing."
Right. Yeah, that's huge. Well, we hit a lot of the questions at this point. Pastor Matt, I don't know if you've been kind of following the Facebook a little more. I don't know if any more came up there. But, before we wrap up this time, there's been some changes to some network events that are taking place with Ohio. And so one being the soonest one coming up is Fine Arts. I know you've posted some stuff about that, but is there maybe any update? We're going to be obviously with the restrictions not meeting in Dayton for Fine Arts this year. So there's a whole lot of work that you and your team has been working on the last couple of weeks, trying to organize a virtual Fine Arts. Would you care to share a little bit about that, just kind of the process and thought behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, We were as everyone, figure out what church looks like, what fine arts looks like, all these, what youth group looks like. And so we want as much as possible to still have fine arts feel what fine arts brings to people. And more than ever, to the point, like I was saying earlier, of, if you lead worship on a Wednesday night, it's like even more now, now than ever, it's like your gift, what God has put inside you, whether it's a short sermon you've been working on, or a song, or even though the human videos, can't get together, it's like the ministry is still there. And the time that we're being, remained in our houses is not going to be forever. And we don't want to get in kind of these spiritual holding patterns. And so we want to keep fine arts moving forward as if we're gathering together. And so as we are moving to this virtual format, and we're asking all individuals to send in their submissions, we're going to have all three evaluators look at it, give comments, evaluate it, and get that to the youth pastor. We're still doing medals, we're still doing the certificates, we're still doing all those things. And I guess I could like share it here. I don't think because we've been working on this, so this is
yeah.
Of course, I said it publicly, but we are going to be the April 24th and 25th was when Fine Arts was going to be, but the 26th, that Sunday night, we're actually going to be doing a Facebook watch party, and we're going to be going live and showing different clips from not just Merit Award winners, but just different clips of people who have participated in fine arts this year, just to bring honor. And we're going to make it this big event to invite the youth ministry to say, hey, at your home, join us. We're going to be live. We're going to insert these clips and all that kind of stuff. But we want you to be a part of what God is doing throughout our state, whether we're together or separate. God is still moving, and still God is still doing something. And like I said, the mission hasn't changed, and what we're trying to do, the ministry hasn't changed, and so that's what we want to do. And so we're looking forward to it. I mean, this is in some respects like, wow, to our point of seniors, oh man, this is difficult and this looks different, but we are pioneering something that's never been done, and that's the exciting part to me. And so I'm excited to see that. And then on top of that, Nationals is in Columbus. And so we are really excited to be hosting that this year. And, I made mention to you guys, but make mention again with the groups, obviously, due to the restrictions by the CDC and by our president and our government officials, we're not going to be having groups get together for fine arts. We want to keep everyone safe. And so, we've said because not knowing what the future holds, we want to advance those groups to nationals. And so ensembles and all those kind of things, just so there's not this pressure of, even if the band gets lifted, right, they haven't been able to practice, they haven't been able to get together. So we want to, allow that stress to kind of be lifted off. But we're super excited for it. And we've been working on it diligently, and we want it to feel to the best that we can in this season.
Yeah. Well, and Pastor Nate, thanks so much for leading us through that. I know such a large event like that's not an easy thing to completely flip the plans upside down on. And we're grateful for your leadership in that. And CSM students, for those of you watching, those of you registered to go to Fine Arts, we're going to be following up with you here in the next couple of days, just about kind of our process for that. But Fine Arts is still happening. God is still working through you. We're excited to see how God's going to use what you've prepared to benefit our group when we can meet together again, but also just the way you're using your talents to serve Him through that. So you'll be hearing from us some more in the next couple of days about fine arts stuff. Pastor Nate, how can we stay up to date with all Ohio Youth Ministry stuff? Where can we go to subscribe, follow?
Yeah, for sure. So you can go to our website, which has all the information, with the virtual fine arts, and that's oymnetwork.com. So you can go there and stay up to date there. But we're on the social media platforms of Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for those older folks that are using Twitter, like to be on there. I still got mine. Come on, listen, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, what's trending in Twitter? But you can go on there, right? On so far on Instagram, just Ohio Youth Men, and then for Facebook, you can go to our page, Ohio Youth Ministries. You'll find everything there that you can, stay up to date and all that good stuff. And so we, update that, keep everything, especially now where everyone's on social media. We look to update that to make sure it's with the current information.
Yeah, it's really cool. I've seen, on the Facebook Live in different places that there's been different people from all over Ohio going live and sharing some things. You're going to be sharing some devos the next couple of days this week. So students, make sure you go like, subscribe, follow all of those great places, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you got that. Stay up to date with what's happening in Ohio. And Pastor Nate, we're so thankful that you came on today. Thanks for encouraging us and talking about youth ministry with us. We're so blessed to have you as our youth director, and want to just say thanks for all you're doing.
Listen, thank you guys. Seriously, it's an honor to be with you guys. I have much love for Toledo Calvary as a whole, and then especially just youth ministry. I've been privileged to see what you guys are doing, from Avalanche to what you're doing with Speed the Light, and just your heart is just phenomenal. And so with social media, now that everyone's on it, I get to see what you guys are doing. It's just amazing. So I appreciate all of you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Pastor Nate. We appreciate you, man.
Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We hope that this time was a blessing to you, and thanks for your questions. We want to continue to reach out and have these connection points with you. And so we'll be posting some schedule of other times that we're going to go live and have some stuff. Tomorrow, there's going to be a high school hangout again, 3:30, Lord willing. Pastor Matt, if you're there, you're going to be rolling with it, but you might be making your way to a hospital with a little baby soon. So praying for you.
No one knows.
Yeah. So
no one knows the day or the hour.
Come on. So we're excited for you in this season, but high schoolers, hey, there's going to be a hangout tomorrow on Zoom. We'll be posting stuff about that. Got some great stuff the rest of the week. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Pastor Nate, thanks again, and have a great day, everybody.